And our next guest, the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, his new show, 100% Hockey with Darren Millard, starts on Friday. A happy new year to the most famous man from all over British Columbia, Mr. John Shannon. John. Happy holidays, John. How was your Christmas?
Oh, it was great. We go on Shannon lockdown. So, we don't do a darn thing for 5 days. So it's great. Really
you sit in the house, you watch hockey, you watch football, you eat, you drink, you be merry.
Yeah. And, you don't even get in the car. You don't even get in the car. It's fantastic.
And honestly, that's part of the allure, right? There is nothing to do. There is nothing on the schedule. There is nothing where my attendance is required.
And quite frankly, I don't get tuned into the World Junior Championship. My friend Paul Graham will be angry with me until tonight. With the big Canada-USA game, the preliminary round is what it is, and you have wins and you have losses. Just make sure you qualify for the next round, and now the serious stuff starts. So, and then the rivalry between the two countries is something that has really grown, and it's fun to watch.
So you're not striking the symposium after the loss to Latvia.
Well, no, but the Americans then should do it too after their loss to Finland. So, I mean, it's all relative, right? It's all relative.
Yeah. Looking forward to tonight. Also, looking forward to the second half of the NHL season. We will start with Patrick Allvin's comments yesterday, John, on Elias Pettersson and beyond. What struck you?
Well, I think the messaging from management has been pretty consistent. I think that they started the season with a great deal of hope and then grew a little more disappointed day after day when it appeared that lots of players, not just Elias, didn't really learn from their 2 rounds of playoff performance. And because it all goes back to, well, wait until the team gets some playoff experience. Wait until they get a playoff experience. And some teams can make it work. And right now, the Vancouver Canucks have not done a very good job of translating that experience in those games against Nashville and against Edmonton into success this regular season. And I think that's very frustrating for management.
Would you be wary of Elias Pettersson's future here after reading what the GM had to say?
I am still not. This guy's a superstar. Or has the potential to be a superstar. He may not be right now. He's a foundational part. I think that's one of the reasons why at such a young age, Pettersson is getting a lot of this criticism, because I think they feel they need to push him to get to that level. And they need to condition him to criticism and condition him to playing under the microscope. And so from that point, I would say, no, they're still trying to get him to play the right way. But the fear that you'd have of getting rid of somebody with that talent to come back to haunt you would I think would be paramount for this group.
You talk about applying the lessons that they learned from the playoffs. They may not get the chance to apply those lessons in next spring's playoffs, John, unless they pick things up, and it just feels like crunch time. Obviously, no Pettersson for this week, but the bigger issue, obviously, is Quinn Hughes out for a couple of weeks. We're led to believe here. If they lose in regulation to Calgary tonight, the Flames leapfrog them, and the Canucks fall below the playoff bar. Like, how concerned do you think this group should be about the tenuous situation without 2 of their best players right now?
I think you should add Philip Hronek to that too, Jeff.
Yep,
I really do, and I there is no coincidence that this team has sputtered without Hronek in the lineup too. I think he's a big factor both on the ice and in the room. So I'm a little more conservative than most people on this discussion. I'll explain my logic before I give it. So when I was running Hockey Night, we would never ever show the standings until the All-Star break. It just wasn't pertinent. It didn't matter. Now, really what happened is that guys of influence started to mention the U.S. Thanksgiving and all this stuff, and so that became something. But I just think it's too early to panic. I still do think it's too early to say, well, they're going to leapfrog them and now they're in a playoff spot. We're was it game 37, 38? Yeah. I mean, so I just think it's far too early to be sitting here saying, okay, this is a vital game. They have finally got to some extent their home game a little bit better. Their road game has been fine. So ask me after maybe at the end of January. I still think that yes, it's a work in progress. I am not worried about it. I am not. This team is talented enough. It's deep enough. Thatcher Demko is basically right now at the end of training camp. That's really where he is. And the other day against Seattle, you could see that it was, so there were some brilliant saves, and then there was stuff that, hey, okay, you got to get your act together. In that sense. So I am not worried just yet about the Vancouver Canucks at a playoff spot. To me, they're if they're not third in the Pacific, then they're certainly a wild card team for me.
You referenced Saturday afternoon against Seattle. Breathtaking stuff.
I've never seen anything like that. And I can't remember anything like that as drastic as that from the 15-minute mark on. I can't.
We were I was at least watching the Kraken intermission show, and after 2 periods, boy, the commentary was quite different.
Well, hold on. Why are you watching the Kraken show?
Because I could. Because I stumbled upon it, and I went, oh, look at that. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Kraken are on local Seattle.
Oh, that's right.
Television.
Okay, yes.
So I just, just different. We get a lot of the Sportsnet crew here, and that's fine. But I watched the Prime game last week, which I really liked. You and I were texting about that.
Yep.
And then I was like, you know what? Forsland, Olczyk, DT was there, plus their intermission panel, post game. Linda Cohen was there, for heaven's sakes, the legend herself. So, yeah. Anyways, Hughes, Dreger tells us it should be about 3 weeks on Quinn Hughes, so about 10 games. What are your thoughts about playing without Quinn for about 10 games?
Well, that's a ton of pressure to put on guys like Susie and Myers and a few, and Noah Juleson has to be better. He has to be better. That's part of what this learning curve is going to be all about. You do almost think, though, that how does the game plan change? Because Quinn does so many things, not just on the power play, not just the way he navigates the offensive blue line, but how they transition out of their own zone is so much of what Quinn Hughes does. You do have to think that has to be between now and his return, there has to be some level of simplification of zone exits, puck control, and 5-on-5 play in your own zone. That to me is just that I'm sure that Adam Foote I'm sure he's lost some sleep over this one without having Quinn Hughes in the lineup.
They might be able to get by here this week. It's Calgary, it's Seattle again, it's Nashville, and then it's Montreal to start a road trip. But a week from now, John, it's Washington, it's Carolina, it's Toronto, and it's Winnipeg. So Mountain gets pretty steep in a real hurry here for this hockey club for a lot of those areas that you just talked about. I think that's the challenge. You can say, hey, Noah Juleson's got to be better. Can he be better? And can he be better against the best teams in the National Hockey League? And I guess we're about to find out.
Well, hey, listen. I think you learned a lesson from the Seattle game on Saturday, Jeff.
So.
There's no empty net goals in this league anymore. Montreal goes into Florida and wins 4-0. Nashville played really well last night in Winnipeg. Nashville's a better team than they show right now. And Barry Trotz is going to be very patient. There's not going to be a house cleaning in Nashville. They're going to push this through with this group of guys. So from that perspective, I know the 4 games against the big squad, starting with Washington, are hard, but I tell you what, I mean, these 4 games against these teams are going to be fascinating. Calgary for the first part of the year, I think we talked about it, was one of the best stories in hockey, and they every once in a while they kind of hit the skids, but you know what, they're going to be a tough out tonight at home. But nobody's easy anymore. Anaheim's not easy. San Jose's not easy. Yeah. This is a very difficult league right now for all 32 teams.
And like to see it because the floor needed to raise after the last few years, John, and it has. So that's fantastic. It
does make you wonder what the magic number. Our pal Kenny Holland, who's sitting in Vernon, at the lake, just having a good time right now. He was the guy that you'd say, okay, Kenny, what's the magic number? He'd say 96. It'd be 96 points to make the playoffs. Okay, 96, and so you'd measure everything against 96. I'm not sure it's going to be 92. This year, just because that, as you talked about, Matt, the floor has risen so much, and there are really no pathetic teams in the NHL right now, and conversely, there is no overly dominant team in the NHL. We used to talk about the 8 teams or 9 teams in the mushy middle. We might have 16 or 17 in the mushy middle now.
Yeah. John, yesterday we asked, is this Canucks season cursed? Now, you're an old British Columbian. Young boy when the Vancouver Canucks struck their NHL franchise and the draft wheel dropped on Vancouver. Oh, wait a second. No, it's Buffalo.
Kamloops at that point, was he? Were you in Kamloops at that time, Jeff? Were you up there?
When the Canucks came into the league?
Yeah.
I was in diapers. Come on.
I'd like to tell you I was too, but I wasn't.
So, but you go back to the draft wheel and, Perreault going to Buffalo and Talon coming
I go
to
back to 67 when Vancouver got screwed. That's how far I go back. Because Vancouver should have had an original team in 67, but the Maple Leafs and Canadians voted against it because they didn't want to share the TV money.
Yeah. So what do you think? The notion that this franchise is just cursed, that they are the NHL's version of what the Red Sox and the Cubs used to be.
Hold on. Buffalo has missed the playoffs for 13 seasons. The Detroit Red Wings are 8 years out. There are a lot of cursed teams in this league. As a British Columbian, can you see people being frustrated with 2 steps forward, 3 steps back? Sure, you can see that and you can feel that. This is still a very good team. What really has changed for me, and it's something that it's recent history, is since the arrival of Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin, is the expectation has changed. The expectation, and remember, before they showed up, it was, oh God, we just want a playoff game. Oh, we gotta have a playoff game. Well, now it's not the expectation of get into the playoffs. Now it's, oh, we got to get to the third round, or are we? Do we have championship caliber players on this club? So really, in so many ways, the tide has risen so high because of the foundation that these guys have set. Dare I remind everybody that of the time, and Jeff, you were traveling with the club when Bruce Boudreau was the best news in town. It wasn't that long ago, and they didn't make the playoffs with Bruce. It wasn't that long ago. So to me, it's based on, and really the team that I would compare the Canucks to, not as drastic as the team I'm going to tell you about, is the New York Rangers. There was expectation. If somebody had told me in September that it could be a Vancouver Rangers Stanley Cup final, I would have bought it.
There was a lot of that. Redux of 94. It's going to be the Rangers and the Canucks in September. Yeah.
So I understand the passion. I understand the frustration. But I think you have to think it's all based on the expectation that the fan base and the team has created because they have rebuilt the foundation so well.
Probably not what your buddy Sam Rosen imagined when he announced his retirement tour.
No, I don't know what's going on there. And I don't know if you noticed the news day before yesterday, but Jim Dolan's father passed away. The legendary Charles Dolan, the man who invented HBO and really was an advocate for cable TV, kept the New York Islanders alive for years. By buying the TV rights to the hockey club. So you'd have to think that if anything's going to happen, it's not going to be imminent as they try to find a way to manage through what the Dolan family is doing.
Yeah. Alvin said in that story with IMAC yesterday that, look, sometimes you have to shake things up. Do you think this management group has the patience to watch this through to the end of the year, or do you anticipate, here's the quote, "Do I want to see if I could shake things up and send a message to the players? Sometimes that is what's needed." Do you see that happening by the trade deadline?
Well, first thing is, I think for Patrick to tell Ian that is the first level of shakeup, is that, wave the big stick. And do it publicly, because darn well they've done it privately. They've had talks with the players and talks with the coaches and say, what are we doing? We got to do it better. But they will not sit down and just live through this. If by, March 7th? If by March 7th that they're still, and I've used the word already, sputtering, then something will happen. They will do something. Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin, if you look at their history and they think they have potential, they will sell the farm for now. They will get it done in order to try, particularly if they believe in this group of players. And when you talk about Quinn Hughes, if he's healthy, and when you talk about Pettersson and you talk about Miller, and the other players and Thatcher, and they're invested in, they will do something before the deadline in order to try to right the ship.
Do you believe they would choose Miller over Pettersson if it gets that drastic?
I'm still of the belief they're not choosing either, so that they're sticking with both of them. I really am.
Sticking to his guns. You've been consistent on this.
You guys both know that I've been a Miller advocate for a long time. I just love the way he shows his emotion, and I love the way he plays the game. But at the same time, Pettersson is. He is an elite of an elite player, and they can. There has to be a belief that they can fix that.
So you don't believe that the end is nigh here. That if the turnaround doesn't come between now and the deadline, that they're going to make a move.
That would be as much as I think that this management group likes the here and now. I just think they would look at it and say, this guy's too young. He does have potential. And he's going to come back and bite us in the butt if we do something silly.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Happy New Year, Mr. Shannon.
Wait,
yes.
I need to know, John. Help me out here. This league has spent, I don't know how many years now, better part of 2 decades, it feels like, building up the tradition of the Winter Classic on New Year's Day. And here we are. We're not flipping the calendar, and they're playing at Wrigley this afternoon. Is this the league spooked by college football and the big day on Jan 1 this year, or why are they playing the Winter Classic on December 31st?
Well, Jeff, I was there. I was at the league in 2008, 2009 when this whole Winter Classic came about, and we picked January 1st because NBC dropped the Gator Bowl. And so the quotes were, if college football and it doesn't want New Year's Day, we do. To me, the difference between December 31st and New Year's Day is moot, really. The question becomes is how many more people will watch on December 31st versus January 1st? And I think the answer is I think more people will watch today. Simply because with the new college football playoffs system and tomorrow being a huge day, I think this makes more sense. I also think that the guys that do the schedule and the network and TNT do, they also look at the success that the World Juniors had in our country, particularly on December 31st. And so if you look now, that's a pretty darn good doubleheader with the outdoor game and then Canada USA back to back. So it's not ideal. I do think that part of the answer to your question, Jeff, is that I think that people envision a greater success for the outdoor game, that it would be a tent pole that people who aren't necessarily traditional hockey fans would watch. And that's just not the case. This is still...
Well, it was saturated, John.
Well,
they started doing outdoor games left, right, and center, so it lost sort of its special event status, the Winter Classic.
But they tried to change that the last couple of years. They went and then they added, last year Vegas and Seattle was quite frankly such a disappointment. But it speaks to the success of this league is its regionality. The success of this league is what it does in the markets. Like if you compare, if you compare almost every NBA team regionally versus NHL regionally, the hockey team wins 60 to 70% of the time.
It's fair share. You're quite right.
But nationally it doesn't. Correct. And that's in the United States. And that's the real frustration. It was a frustration for all of us, and it was a frustration, I'm sure, for the guys. So I'm willing to try. This has become, the outdoor game now has become a super regional event. That's what it's become.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's big in Chicago today. Hopefully it's big in St. Louis today. And then we'll figure out where next year is.
Yeah.
And if it's in South Florida, it's in South Florida.
And for those who don't know, as college football slowly moved towards the playoff, you started to see fewer games on New Year's Day and fewer games of consequence on New Year's Day. So it was a really smart opportunity from you and others in the league to move into that space. College football has now gone to a 12-team playoff this year. So New Year's Day now has 3 playoff games, elimination games, which is difficult to program against and get an audience.
By the way, just to set the record straight, it was John Collins and Ken Shanzer at NBC were the two driving forces. I was just along for the ride.
Okay. Well, we're glad you've been along for the ride with us in 2024, Shannon.
Happy New Year, boys.
Happy New Year. Good luck on the launch of the show on Friday with Darren Millard. We'll be watching. We'll be listening.
Thank you.
And we'll catch up next week in 2025.
Cheers, boys. And you know what? Canuck fans, just be patient, okay?
Okay. Let's hope 2025 isn't cursed.
You don't know what cursed is until you talk about 73 and 74 and 75. That's cursed.
Until you've seen a draft wheel that looks like it says Canucks, but on closer inspection,
there's no way Punch Imlach was losing that wheel, baby.